back to the very beginnings.
This was really, the place to be. By gunsmith John Dowd in Goshen, Connecticut. So he died in March, and he was going to be buried, and they're lucky.
I'm Samuel Burton. I was born here in Manchester in 1840. I was raised here in Manchester. I went to Burr Seminary, where my father was the assistant principal and teacher. He was very, very well respected, a man of great stature. Our family home is now the American Museum of Fly Fishing. And my father's grave is right here, right next to me. It's William Burnham. After Burr Seminary, which I graduated from when I was only 15, I went to Middlebury College. And there I graduated at 18 years old, a graduate of Middlebury College. I thought the world was my oyster, having a college education and being so young. So I started to teach in Paulet, and then after a while I came back to Manchester to study medicine. But then in 1861, when I was only 21 years old, the world changed, not only for me, but for the rest of the country. The federal fort in the Charleston Harbor, Fort Sumter, was bombarded by Confederates. The Civil War was on. And as you know, Vermont was the first state to offer troops to the Union. So I enlisted immediately. Spent a few months in some skirmishes and so on. But then late that summer I came back to Manchester to recruit our own company here in Manchester. So I came back to Manchester and established the recruiting office, which is on the second floor of Equinox Shops. That's right opposite the Bennington County Courthouse. The offices below were actually a retail store, Covey and Nyde. It later became the Hard Pharmacy and so on, but it still exists right on the corner of Union Street and Main Street. So I was able to recruit 87 of us. And that's late summer and early fall, early September. We trained right there in the Village Green, but between the Bennington County Courthouse and the Equinox Hotel. And of course, the Equinox Hotel was actually 2 or 3 other buildings, but eventually became the Equinox. It still exists. The recruiting office still exists. The Bennington County Courthouse still exists. In early September, we were ready to join the rest of the troops from Vermont. So the Manchester Cornet Band came and played. All our families were there, and we marched down to the Manchester Depot. Now the train had come in 1852, the depot was there, and the actual building is still there where we left from. And that's part of R.K. Miles, the shed in the back of R.K. Miles. We got on the train and headed north. We headed to St. Albans. So we went up to St. Albans, where we only spent a couple of weeks, but we were outfitted further. We were officially mustered in as Company E, the Equinox Guards of the 5th Vermont Regiment. We did a little more training. We joined the other Vermont troops that were up there. And then after about 3 weeks, we took a train south, but on the east side of Vermont. We went down through White River Junction. We then went through Brattleboro. We went on to Hartford, Connecticut, and then down to New Haven. In New Haven, we boarded a ferry, and that ferry took us to Jersey City. In Jersey City, we boarded another train and went down to the Washington area. Got there around late September. In the Washington area, we weren't involved in any frontline action, but we were involved in some skirmishes. We also helped build some forts to defend Washington, and basically spent the winter there. But then in the spring of 1862, General McClellan, who was head of the Army of the Potomac, had this master plan. He was going to take troops down to the Virginia Peninsula and march Union troops north towards Richmond, Virginia, and capture Richmond. As you know, Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy, and in his mind, the war would be over after a year. Well, in fact, we did land on the Virginia land on the peninsula there. We did head north. Everything was going well. We were winning, but then tragedy happened. The first part of that tragedy was the fact that the Confederate general, who at the time was Robert E. Lee, and he was quite a good general. You have to admit that he was a very good tactician and so on, and leader. He stopped our advance cold, and we were forced to retreat in June, back down the peninsula where we had just come. During that retreat, there was about a week of battles. It became known as the 7-day battles. They were ferocious battles. Of importance to the Equinox Guards was on June 29th, one of those 7-day battles, the Equinox Guards went into battle. Of the 57 Equinox Guards that were fit for fighting, went in within 30 minutes. Only 7 were fit to fight. We lost 52 members of the Guard, either mortally wounded or killed. It was a real tragedy. It was horrible. We were devastated. We got caught in a crossfire, not only from the right and the left, but in front of us on 3 sides. It was a devastating day for the Equinox Guards. And our loss for our Company E, the Equinox Guards, was the largest loss of any company in a single battle or the entire war. Again, the largest loss of any company in any single battle or for the entire war. But not only that, on a more personal level, we had the Cummings families, which was part of the Equinox Guards. That Cummings family consisted of 5 brothers, a cousin, and a brother-in-law. There were 7. Within those 30 minutes, all 7 were mortally wounded or killed. And that was the largest mortality of any family in a single battle or also for the entire war. We were devastated. Manchester was devastated. During that battle, our commander, Charles Dudley, who was commander of the Equinox Guards, was actually sick. And he was not in the field. He was with regiment headquarters, the 5th Regiment. I was the ranking officer, Samuel Burnham, of the Equinox Guard on that day, June 29th, at Savage Station. And I forgot to mention, station is because it was a railroad depot there in Virginia. But I was the commanding officer. Well, for the rest of the war, I never got injured. I was involved in several other battles. I was never injured. I mustered out of the Army in 1865. Went down to South America for a very short time for a job. Then came back to Manchester and then actually started an insurance business where it thrived up in Rutland for many, many, many years. But during that period, I was also assigned by the state of Vermont to be in charge of civil and military affairs. So I was still involved with reunions and the military who had served in the Equinox Guards. One of the reunions we had was in 1897. I was 57 years old. And we had a reunion in the front of the brand new, recently built War Memorial in Manchester Village. That's the war memorial between the Congregational Church and the Equinox Hotel. We had that reunion, and that, ironically, that war memorial had been brought up and had first been made at the Fullerton Marble Works, which is just adjacent to the Manchester Depot. It's still there today as the R.K. Miles Executive Offices. But it's just ironic because after the war, Fullerton got a contract for over 70,000 marble headstones for Civil War veterans. And here it was, we left and the train station, which was 20 feet, full of piss and vinegar, as they say. The world was our oyster. We couldn't die. And then the marble works, which produced all these tombstones, produced them right next to where we left. I hope everyone gets a chance to visit that memorial. Take time, walk around it. If you're in a car, get out. It only takes a second. But look at that Civil War plaque. There are 4 wars up there: Revolution, Mexican, American, and so on. But the Civil War plaque, the first thing that you notice is the number of people that are on it. There's over 150 soldiers who participated from Manchester in the Civil War. Now that's interesting, because in 1864, and I often pondered this, in 1864, Mary Todd Lincoln visited the Equinox Hotel. And she came there to get away from the war in Washington. And of all places, she came to Manchester. And as I've been saying, Manchester was devastated. I don't know what she was thinking. 10% of the town, remember, Manchester only had 1,700 people, and 150 is about 10% of the population was affected by the Civil War. Another thing is interesting, if you put that in perspective, like in Vietnam, the United States, only about 1.5% of our population had served in the Vietnam War. Whereas in the Civil War, one town, 10%, to put it in perspective. So I don't know what she was thinking when she came here, but we were devastated. Plus, if you walk around that monument, notice the 7 Cummings family. There they are, right there. They're from Manchester. Well, that's my story. It was kind of first full of hope and promise and a bright future, and then the Civil War came along. But 3 years after that reunion in 1897, I passed away in the year 1900. So I lived to be 60, and I was one of the lucky ones, when a lot of the people who died from the Equinox Guards were only 17, 18, 19 years old. But another little twist to the story is that battle in Savage Station was one of the 7-day battles. Well, it was during one of those battles that the youngest Medal of Honor winner in the United States, 11-year-old Willie Johnson, received the Medal of Honor from President Lincoln. And he was at the Battle of Savage Station. And he had also trained with us in St. Albans. So I leave you now in a saddened state, but please be proud of the participation of Manchester in the Civil War.